And we're back past the pilot, episode 8, with the amazing Jonny McFadden and myself, Stefan. Today, we want to talk about data analysis and how agentic platforms such as Vertesia can help you with not just like analyzing something that's in a spreadsheet, but really connecting the dots, really understanding how can you reconcile unstructured data points with structured, right? And how an agentic framework that allows you to quickly analyze the existing data structures. And I think, Jonny, today you have a perfect demo to exemplify all of that. You want to tell us about it?
I do, yes. Yeah, so the use case was a really interesting one because it combined both structured data. So when I say structured data, I mean, like databases with rows and records and columns, uh, and unstructured data. So if you think about how a business typically operates, right, it's not going to be all one or the other. It's going to be
Right.
invoice documents, and then that gets input into a database, right, through the CRM or through an accounting software or something
Right.
like that.
Or maybe
So
image recognition even, right? Which is if you have
exactly,
like I would imagine, right?
yeah, and that's a really good point. Yeah, so any unstructured content. So we're going to be looking at documents that are text heavy documents today, but you could do this with images. If you had a database that had
Mm.
information around images, and then you wanted to kind of connect those dots between the actual images and the records of the
Yeah.
images, you could do that as
So
well.
for example, you would have something like let's say you have a database which is a catalog from IKEA, right? And then you would have like a number of pictures and you would try to identify what is in these pictures that matches my catalog. Maybe
Yep.
stuff like that, but there's a million use cases for that, right?
Yeah, and that's why I was so excited about this demo I did was again it we're looking at one specific use case, but it's applicable to, I mean, almost an infinite number of use cases within
Oh wow.
real world context of a business. So should I go ahead and
Mhm.
start sharing
Oh,
my
please do. I
screen?
can't wait to see it.
Cool. So before we dive into the platform, I do have something just to kind of, and this was actually created by an agent, which is always fun. But when I was building this demo, I wanted to find a way to visualize what I was going to show, and so I had an agent actually build out this visualization, which is going to show, right? We have structured data in a database, and then we have a content store which has engagement letters, right, contracts, and also invoices. And the goal of the use case today that we're going to build out is doing reconciliation. So understanding, right, if the data that's in the database truly matches what's in the documents, because at the end of the day, the
Hmm.
documents, the invoices themselves are going to be the source of truth, right? The data in the database ideally will match what's in the invoice, but that isn't always the case. And so this is a way to basically reconcile if there are any differences. So if we come to
Right.
the
And that might be, for
platform,
example, for an update scenario, for example, I could think.
yeah, it could be updates. It could be, right. It could be a lot of this is done manual, still done with manual entry. So maybe someone's entering in a total from an invoice and they hit a two instead of a one, or I mean, there's a number of different
Mhm.
things that might cause those systems to be off. Um,
Mhm.
or if you want, and again, this is not to get off on too many tangents, but you could also do this with if you had invoices and you wanted to compare that to the contract terms, right? You could do document to document comparison. So maybe the invoice has net 45 payment terms and the contract you signed says net 60 payment terms, and that's something you wanted to flag. That's another really good example of something you can do here. But
Mhm.
with today, so what we're looking at here is our content store in our studio. And so the content store is going to be unstructured content objects, images, PDFs, Word documents, videos, any unstructured content you can upload here, as you'll see here. And so these invoices, for example, these all have corresponding records in the database. So if we open up, let's just open one of these real briefly. All right, you can see the invoice over here on the left, the metadata that was extracted on the right. So this information is also stored in a database, which is right here. So it's going to be this accounting CRM database. And
Mhm.
this was all set up by the agent. So when I was building this demo out, I had the agent build not just the invoices and the engagement letters, but also right the data in the database. And so all of this is connected, and I had it purposefully build out some discrepancies that we can find.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
basically, what we're going to do is we're going to ask the platform to help us build an agent that is then
Mhm.
going to reconcile these two. So what I'm going to do,
Can I ask you a question before you get there? Can you go one screen back where you show the object store
yeah,
and the invoice when you clicked on it? So all that you did so far was to basically just upload this PDF, right? And you
yep,
didn't tell anything, you didn't create an agent or anything in order to get sort of structured output. Take an unstructured data, structured document. The Vertesia platform did that by itself. Is that what he's saying?
yes, all this metadata is automatically extracted, and that's actually that brings up another really
Wow.
good point, Steph, which is this metadata, while it's extracted, right, it can be inserted into a database. So I talked about earlier, a lot of this information is still extracted manually, and you have a person typing in, right? Oh, this is the invoice total, this is the company that it was with into a like a CRM system, for
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
With
Hmm.
Vertesia, you can automatically extract that, right, just by setting up a simple schema. So you basically list out what you want, and then when you upload a
Yeah.
document, it will automatically extract
And
everything.
correct me if I'm wrong. Could, so either you go in and you predefine that schema and it's going to try to match and map whatever it finds against that schema, or the intelligence of Vertesia identifies the schema all by itself and sets it up, right?
Yes, and that's actually the more common way of doing it, at least for me, because if you look at this schema, right, there's a lot of information here. And this is
Mhm.
more detailed than I personally am going to come up with on my own, just being to be
Oh
frank.
yeah.
And
Oh
so
yeah.
what I did with this was I had an empty, this was a completely empty account, and when I uploaded the invoices, there were no metadata schemas defined. And so the platform
Mhm.
recognized there were no metadata schemas to match this with, so it created its own metadata schema. And like I said, the metadata
That's
schema that
already mind-blowing. Wow.
yep. Yeah, I mean the metadata schema that it creates is going to be better than anything that
Yeah. That I could
I
ever come up with, right? And Johnny, this is something just like let's put a marker here, pin into this, because I would like to come back to that on one of the next episodes. Talk about semantic dot prep, which is one of the key cornerstones of what the Vertesia platform does. This is fantastic, and it really helps with use case that you're going to show us here.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go. Should we build an agent now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do it. So and this is actually another this was in our most recent release, but our studio assistant. So let me start a
Oh yeah,
brand
you're
new.
using Studio Assistant. Bravo.
So
Just
studio
brand
assistant,
new, really released.
yep. Studio assistant is my new best friend. And what it allows you to do is anything that I can do with the click of a mouse over here, right? The Studio Assistant can do because since we're an API first platform, we've basically given the Studio Assistant the ability to interact with all those same APIs that I'm interacting with manually. And so what this allows us to do is do things like create agents. And so what I've found has been a really effective pattern in actually building out agents for real world use cases is instead of me building it out all on my own, I essentially work with the platform to help me build an agent. So what I can do is I can say
Wow.
in this project there is a database that has invoice and engagement letter data. Uh, those records have corresponding documents in the content store. I would like to reconcile these. Can you help me build an agent to do so?
Wow, that's really more like a brain dump. You
It
can do it
is.
at that high level of abstraction.
Yes, it is 100% a brain dump. Sometimes I'm getting to the point where sometimes I don't even care if I misspell words. The agent understands. The agent understands what I'm asking for. And so again, notice that, and this is really, really powerful. I said in this project, right? And so it understands the context. It actually can see what I'm looking at on my screen. So if you see where it says store/objects, that is the context it has of the screen that I'm looking at. So it can actually see
Mm.
what's on the screen. Um,
So
and
it's
now it's going to ask me
contextually
questions.
aware.
Exactly. So it's asking me some questions. I'm going to say create a report. Um, let's say it should only cover invoices. Right. And so this interactive way of building an agent I've found has resulted in really, really good outcomes, because instead of me just guessing what the prompt needs to be and doing my best to get it and then running it and testing it and iterating, right, I can do this all with an agent. So what is it going to
And it
check?
really drives the conversation, the development, right? So it takes your input, then it starts doing something. It's realizing, oh, the next course of action, this is what popped up here, the different choices you could make, or you
Yep.
say it's none of those, keep going into another direction. So it's like your own developer.
Yeah, it is. It's a very odd way of working, because you're developing an agent with an agent. And so, but it's
Yeah.
also, since it has all the context, it's actually really, really useful, because it will, I can ask the agent, what do you need me to answer, right? Here's what I'm trying to
Mhm.
do. Based on all the tools you have, can you do this? And what do you need from me to do that? And you'll see, right, in this instance, it was asking me questions because I was really, really vague, high level. Instead of just guessing what I wanted, it came back and it said, well, you said reconcile, but that can mean a couple different things, right? What exactly do you want to reconcile between the two? And so
Yeah.
you can see all that it's doing here. It has skills around, right, agent creation. So it has skills that help it do things within the platform. Um,
Yeah.
and it has access to all the tools, right? And it's going to go on and keep doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually jump fast forward for the sake of time to one that I created earlier. And again, this was created in the exact same way, but this invoice reconciliation agent. So this was one that was built by Studio Assistant. I built it this morning. And ultimately what it's going to do is something that looks like this. So this is the prompt, and this was all built out by the agent. So it's looking at the CRM database, it's looking at the content store. It's included a ton of detail around the different content types that it needs to be working with.
Wow.
All stuff that I would have to do manually typically. So I mean, if you think about how long it
And it
would take.
discovered all of that stuff by itself, right?
Yep.
You didn't
Yep.
have to tell it the database ID. You didn't have to tell it how to connect to a table, how to identify rows in a table, and all that stuff. It just these are the tools you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It understands everything that's in the project. So when I say there's a database in this project, what it can do, it can go and it can search and it can say, here's the database. It mentioned, right, invoices. Oh, there's two databases, but only one database has invoices in it. It must be this one. And so it can use the very broad, vague information that I give it, and it can start to explore the project and then make the right decision based on what I told it. Very similar to how you can instruct, or you can ask a human to do something and you don't have to explicitly say do step 1, 2, 3. Like I didn't have to say go to this database, it's this database ID,
Right.
and then go to this
So
column.
comparing this to something like a Claude Code, right? You would have to upload everything and make the API connections and all that stuff. So the Vertesia platform is doing all of that automatically. That's
Yep,
huge.
exactly. Yeah, and if you think about, like, if you look at this prompt, right? I mean, this is stuff that is really, really detailed. I mean, to do it by hand or even just do it with another LLM, right, would take a lot of time. So I mean, you can work with chatbots and you can
Mhm.
say, build me a prompt to do this. But then again, I have to copy and paste the prompt from the chatbot into the platform, and then I have to it doesn't have the context,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't have the context of what I'm trying to do. So I mean, just from the point of view of someone that used to do this, just a month ago manually, again, I would use LLMs to help me generate prompts, but it was still very
Yeah.
manual, because it's copying and
Yeah.
pasting, it's adjusting for the right context, it's giving it the
It,
database ID.
it, we had Claude Code, right? Claude Code we have available. So you would basically start working out, and yes, in Cloud Code you would have the GitHub repository that we have, right? So it would have
Yep.
an understanding of the basic principles of the platform and what's possible. And Cloud Code came pretty close into developing stuff that kind of worked, but you had to copy it from Cloud Code, paste it into an interaction, create the interaction here, then make sure that all the connections are made or in the right order, right? That all the input schemas are correct, all of that stuff. And now with the Studio Assistant is really managing all of the elements of the platform for you, and it knows how to work itself. And also it can do the testing.
That is another thing that I was going to touch on, right? It can do the testing. So traditionally, how I would run this is
That's
I would
huge.
I'd come here and I could run it. I would give it, say, January, I don't know, 1st, 2020, requested by yours truly, if I could spell my name. And then let's go ahead and select Cloud Sonnet, right? And then I can start it. So I did this manually. And again, it's not like, a ton of work, but it's another abstraction layer that we're allowed to kind of zoom out and have the platform do this for us. So I can
Mhm.
actually come here and I can have it test, right, the agent. And so instead of running it manually, I can instruct an agent to run 5 different tests. I could say, test 5 different prompts with this agent and tell me what comes back with the best results or the most accurate results. Right. And they would actually spin
Run
up
five
five
different
sub agents
prompts across,
with five.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And so
five
it's,
prompts across 5 different models, right?
yeah.
So, hey, test this prompt with OpenAI and GPT and Gemini and ever, right?
Yeah, which again is stuff that we could do before. We could do it manually, but now it's gone from taking uh, you know, a couple hours to do all that testing and aggregate the results, right? And again, it was still much quicker than it would have been prior, but now you're able to do that with just a prompt. So it's like a prompt
That's just mind blowing.
to build prompts and test it with different models and come back and give you the results. Um, and yeah, so the studio assistant, right, is just really, really, I think, incredible in terms of how much it can speed up the development within the platform itself. And then I think you mentioned comparison to right, Claude Code earlier and other agents, and this is something that gets brought up a lot of how are we different from these other, right, agent frameworks or whatever. And I think something that's kind of dawned on me over time as I've been working with various customers is all of this comes, right, pre-integrated. So the database, for example, right? If I were to do this with another platform, I would have to pick a database. I would have to connect to that database. I'd have to manage that connection to the database. Same thing with the content store. I'd have to find an object store. I'd have to find a vector database to use. I'd have to integrate that. Then I'd have to
Mhm.
build tools for my agent to integrate. So there's all these steps that we're basically bypassing because the platform is already integrated.
And you would have to use you could use LangChain to do all of these things, but again, you or your developers would take weeks to put it all together in a way that it would work. And let's not even think about MCP. MCP, everybody thinks it's sort of the solution to everything, but really what MCP is at the enterprise level, it's a governance nightmare, right? Because there's no way to really control the different levels of access and accessibility and authentication. It goes way beyond that because now with MCP, suddenly someone has like a very broad access to a tool, right? And is
Yeah.
exposing the data. So the Vertesia platform, and that's a different topic, has MCP built into it with a special layer for all these governance issues. But all of that, coming back to the abstraction that you're doing here, Jonny, is you don't care about that. Vertesia
Nope.
is handling all of this for you, right?
Yeah, it really allows you to work in do really complex tasks and build really complex workflows, and you can do it all in plain language is kind of how I see it, right? It's like you're
Yep.
instructing the studio assistant in plain language to build an agent, right? And then you can go and you can look at that agent and you're working out the behavior and the instructions of that agent again in plain language. And all the really the complex stuff is already handled with the Vertesia platform. The integration to the database, the integration to the
Yeah.
content store, the metadata extraction, the embeddings that need to take place in order for these AI models to understand, right, the text or the documents that it's looking at. All of that's already taken care of. And so it basically lets me build and you build the fun stuff, right, with all this AI without having to worry about
Right.
all the technical maintenance and the technical debt.
And maybe just to clarify that, Johnny, it's like in this case here, we're building one agent, one interaction to do a certain function. But we're using this already to ask to build like entire agentic frameworks and
Yep.
applications sitting on top of that, right? So there's a specific way that it will vet whatever you give. You just gave it like basically one sentence, right? It
Mhm.
will try to understand what is your intent, and then you will converse with what is basically a solution architect to really get to the bottom of what is it the chief here, and that's going to drive what's doing in the background, really, that you don't have to do anymore because now the agent is taking care of it, such as what you showed, the automatic schema identification, right? Setting up the
Yep.
schema for a database, for an extraction, that moving on, new content comes into the object, or it will identify, hey, there's some new schema fields in here. I'm going to extend the database because it makes sense, and starts connecting and correlating all the data points with it with. So it's incredibly powerful what's happening. But maybe back to your, what are we looking at?
We're looking at the results of this agent. So everything that the agent did, you can see in a ton of detail, right? Um, and so basically what it did was it built a plan, and then it went ahead and it started executing that plan. So you can see here it's actually querying the database.
Mhm.
It is learning skills, right, to query effectively. It's going to retrieve the invoices, right? So here's a single agent, and it's working with structured data with one tool, and then the very next tool, it's working with unstructured data. And it can actually do this in parallel as well, right? So for efficiency. So it essentially does that, and then it's going to do all the comparisons. So there's a lot of information that it goes through. But ultimately, what it came back with was, right, there were 12 mismatches that it found. And so it didn't find any missing documents, which is true from me knowing to run this before, right? But it basically came back and it gave me a full report on everything that it did, and then all the details of the invoice. So if we click on this report, we'll go ahead and open this in a new tab.
Oh, okay. So now we're looking basically at the agent log, but it also created a full report.
Yep. Created a full report, and this is in the platform, but we can have it emailed, right? So the agents have tools to send emails, for example. So what we could do is have this emailed to the person that is responsible for this reconciliation, right? And so
Yeah.
you can have this information, right? It's all done in the platform, but it's flexible enough where it can really make its way to anywhere it needs to go, right? It can, if it needs to be uploaded to a CRM, right, for someone to then be notified to log into the CRM and view the report there. We can do that as well. So the platform is really kind of a central AI hub where you can use all these different components that are already, pre-configured and pre-integrated, to build out the custom solutions you need and then make those available in whatever system or user interface that people are
And you're tapping into a super important point here that might get missed maybe. So what is happening here, and that's sometimes maybe underestimated. So the platform here is dynamically creating an agent in order to accommodate a task that you gave it, right? And
Yep.
it's using its own intelligence and all the tools available in order to create a solution that meets your requirements. And as you said, I could email that out, but also it could be integrated into your Slack channel, into your Microsoft Teams, right?
Yep.
You could maybe you could trigger that question maybe via an email and get the report sent back. So the
Yeah.
possibilities of, I just want to make sure we understand this. We are showing you here the studio interface of Vertesia, which is the way that the back end behind the curtain, how all of this is working. But where really the power lies is that all of this can be fully integrated into an existing platform, ecosystem, whatever you have in your corporation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the flexibility is really there in terms of it can be a custom application that's built specifically for this, but it can also be an existing application. So we have
Yeah.
customers that use Vertesia in their existing applications, right? And the end user might not even know that Vertesia is there. They just know that the system
The
they're
in,
working with, right, has some really cool AI capabilities that it didn't have before. And they don't,
the invoices might come directly from your Xerox scanner,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Being delivered to the agent's making sense of it, creating the reconciliation with the database, and the accountant gets the final output already in their whatever CRM database in this case.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's doing work that, like, this is a really good example, right? Where it's doing work with a database. Now this was a small database, but what if we have a database that has 50,000 records, right? In some
Yeah.
instances, this would take, a team of people doing work that isn't right exactly right optimal human work, right? Where you're checking this and this
You
against this,
offshored something
right?
to a data input team
And it's
somewhere
it's
offshore.
it's stuff it's stuff it's work that people typically don't enjoy, right? Of just doing this mundane checking A against
Mhm.
B and C against
Error
D,
prone.
right? Yep, and it's also very error prone. So if you think about, right, if you have a person, let's say, check 1,000 records against 1,000 invoices, the chances that they're going to make a mistake is I would almost say it's 100% likelihood. I know if I'm doing the checking, that's certainly the case because humans have limited attention span, right? And this is work that is really well suited for these types of AI agents because it's stuff that humans don't like doing, and it's stuff that is very error prone when it comes to humans doing it. And I think you're frozen again, Steph. Let me see. Oh, are you there?
I'm here. I just
Okay.
keep dropping in and out.
Nope. Just popping in to say hello. Are you frozen again, or are you there? You don't know. Well, that's all I had
Hello.
to show for today in terms of the demo. Any follow-up questions? Anything else you think would be good to click into?
I think I'm back.
Oh, yep, you're
Yeah.
back.
Okay, yeah, back. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
this is
that's
amazing. And this is exactly where value is generated, or where value, this is not just about automating a process. Automating a process beforehand would have been to maybe, yes, you would have like an automation system that maybe does OCR and that maybe identifies some meta field here or there, and you would pay a lot of money only for that. But on top of that, you would have to have people that are still, even if you offshore that, right, that would have to do a lot of mundane work, a lot of error, a lot of that is only for quality assurance, right? So now
yep.
you're taking all of that mundane process, which is super important, valuable. It's just because uh, it seems to be such a normal thing to do. It doesn't mean it's not super valuable because it's the beginning of your value chain when you can build people, for example, when you can build your products to other people. So how do you how do you make sure that you're using a platform that can actually allows you to dynamically change how you structure that process, as opposed to going back to the drawing board and trying to figure it all out step by step, Jonny, as you explained in the beginning, you had to do this all manually, just the development work as well as the actual process, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's 10 times faster now with our studio assistant. And it was already fast before that, right? So it's a compounding effect where it's faster than it was, and it was
Mm.
fast before. But now, I mean, I'm building agents that are really, really complex, uh, and not just complex, but producing high quality output, right? Much, much quicker
Yep.
than I would before because all of the testing can be automated. But I still have the granularity to go in and actually see what's going on with each individual test.
That's just crazy. That's just crazy, right? And back to our conversation where previously the ways of working are constantly changing. And I'm personally really grateful to be part of a of such a movement where we can actually take a step back every week and learn something new and learn a new way of making the outputs better, right? But also making it easier to raise that abstraction level. Because what you just did here, Jonny, basically you gave the brain dump of one sentence and it accomplished an extremely complicated, complex task that with traditional means would have taken weeks just to get to the point where you say, yes, we have a valid testing. We had our first run go through, and it created like our first report that came out in a way where we can say, okay, it identified critical issues, it identified matches, right? Just making these connections all alone, just making these API connections to the database, right? Connecting that via LangChain to an LLM, checking out what is the best LLM to do that. And you basically did all of that. It's not even a prompt. You asked it the question, right? That's just insane.
I asked it for help. I said, "Can you help me
You
do
asked it
this?"
for help, right?
Yeah, and it took
Yeah,
off and it did it. And uh,
yeah,
yeah, and again, I think it's important to comment, right? There's the agent, like you don't just do a one-shot prompt or question and the agent is ready for production, right? But the value of what Vertesia brings is it allows you to get to testing really, really quickly and then do that testing really quickly. So instead of taking
yeah,
weeks to build an agent, you can do it in less than a day, right? And you can have a production
yeah,
ready, really high quality agent that's,
yeah,
doing exactly what you want it to do. It's been tested, you
yeah,
have the guardrails in place, and
yeah.
it's ready to be published for end users in, a couple of hours.
And Studio Assistant, what you showed today, is actually something of a way bigger framework, which we call the app builder, right? Which
Yep.
is then actually a number of sequenced agents that go through intent, that go through a solution and architecture with you, that then go into the building part, constantly working with you as a human, checking in. So it's not just a one drop black box that would just create something without your control, but it keeps you as the mind, as the mastermind behind solving the problem. It keeps you in the loop and works
Yep.
together with you. It really becomes sort of your personal developer that really helps you to understand what is it that we're building here, and it's doing it for you.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Is it's like working with a developer. It's like collaborating with a team of really smart people, rather than having to do it all yourself, right? That's kind of where this agentic AI has been taking us. Is now as a single person, I have a scalable team that has a ton of knowledge in all domains of life, that it can help me build out use
Yeah,
cases that I typically
right.
wouldn't be able to build. Yeah,
And this team has amazing tool sets at its disposal, right? It's not just
yeah,
the power of the team, but also the power of the tools that the team can use.
yeah,
And the team knows how to use it, right?
yeah.
Which is something we call skills. Jonny, thank you so much for giving us a deeper insight into how agentic services with Vertesia can help to build analytical platforms. I think there was a very powerful demonstration of that. I think the one thing I would love to talk about next time is really that pre-processing, because that's really a very important component into filling the context layer, into making
Yeah.
sure that only the right information goes into the agent's context. That's actually one of the biggest issues out there right now. Yeah, I would love to dig with you into what we call semantic doc prep. Thank you so much, Jonny. I hope you have a wonderful long weekend. 4th of July is near.
Yep.
And
You do the same.
I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. See you on episode 9. Bye.
Bye.